Companies frequently have to manage purchases closely to make sure that they are not making unnecessary purchases, that purchases are within budgets, or to make sure that the correct vendors are being used and the best pricing is obtained. The change management process enables you to create approval and review processes for your purchase orders. When change management is enabled, purchase orders are created that have an approval status. Purchase orders that are in a draft status do not have inventory transactions, much like a journal-type purchase order has no inventory transactions. Change management in AX enables you to track changes for approval on all or some purchase orders. The change management features allow for one draft version of a single purchase order at a time. However, the requester of a change request can recall the change request, make additional changes, and then resubmit the purchase order. When you use change management, a purchase order confirmation is still required before the purchase order can be additionally processed, such as the product receipt and invoice. In addition, a workflow must be configured for purchase orders to use the change management feature. By default, change management is not activated, therefore it must be turned on. Let's review the statuses of a purchase order when change management is used. Here you can see the full list of statuses: draft, in review, rejected, approved, in external review, confirmed, and finalized. Several approval statuses on a purchase order help indicate how far the order is in that change management process. Some statuses are only valid when change management is activated. You'll notice the Use with Change Management column. All statuses are valid when change management is enabled. In the second column, you'll notice the red X's, which indicate that change management or that status is not available when change management is not used. In external review is an optional status that can be used and is triggered by the Purchase Inquiry button on the Purchase tab of the purchase order form. This status is only used to represent vendor negotiations. In this situation, you would send your suggested purchase requirements for vendor approval while you are waiting for vendor sign-off. In the status is set to external review on the purchase order list page. The last column here indicates whether or not inventory transactions are created when a purchase order is in this particular status. You'll notice that only purchase orders with an approved, confirmed, or finalized status can have an inventory transaction. Each business process might require different steps in the workflow. With the workflow configuration, you can define multiple approvals or different levels of approvals. Additionally, you can configure tasks for users to review or verify information on the purchase order before the purchase order is approved. Here you can see an example of a sample workflow that might be configured. The green circles are created or processed by the requester. The requester would create or update a purchase order and then submit it to the workflow. A reviewer would then review and update the purchase order. Later, an approver would review and update and then approve, reject, or request changes to the purchase order. You can also set up line-level workflows to have each line approved by appropriate category or department managers, for example. Note that the request change is available from within the workflow, but it's also an action directly on the purchase order. This is typically an action completed by the person who has new information rather than the approver. Now that we have reviewed the change management process, let's enable the process in AX in our next lesson.